Okay, so what I'm going to do today is create a mountainous terrain in 5 minutes that you can use around the outside of your scene. If you want to have something in the middle of a scene, you want mountainous surrounds. Okay, so let's get started. Create a new Unity project. I'm going to use Unity 2022.1 Alpha, the newest release pretty much, and Universal Render Pipeline. So I'll start off with the 3D URP scene, give it a name. I'll call this Mountains, and load into Unity. Okay, so when you load into Unity, you'll see a URP scene like this. We don't need all these default assets, so click on example assets and delete those. Okay, so let's create a new game object in 3D object terrain. Okay, that's created our terrain. Let's have a look at the properties. If we select the terrain and go over to the inspector, in the last tab here, terrain settings, we can see the settings for that terrain. Okay, so we've got width 1000, length 1000, height 600 for now. That'll be fine, but I want to move it so that this default here, like the origin of the world, is in the middle of the terrain. So let's just translate the terrain across by I think it's minus 500 and minus 500 on the Z, because X and Z is horizontal, Y is vertical. Okay, so now we have terrain pretty much as far as the eye can see. Okay, but it's this lovely, not so lovely checkerboard. So let's give it some texture. If we look at some mountains, these are some mountains in Switzerland. Mountains often, when they're at a lower altitude where the water can collect, you find that there's grass, they're green, and when it goes to higher or steeper altitude, steeper rock faces, you'll see that it's more brown and grey because there's no grass growing. You can just see the rock. Okay, go to the Unity Asset Store. That says store.unity.com. And just in the top, search for hand-painted grass and ground. There's a nice asset here, which I've already got, called hand-painted ground and grass textures. So install that one, and then if you like, click open in Unity. I'll assume that you know how to add assets through the asset store. There it is, hand-painted ground and grass textures. Import. Okay, import everything for now. And go back to the terrain painter, paint terrain here. Now we're going to create, edit terrain layers, create layer, and this time we can search for grass. Alright, we'll use one of these for now. Use this one. Okay, and as soon as you create that new terrain layer, it just paints it all over the terrain. I'm going to turn the fog off so we can see better. So if you go to the lighting tab, which is not displaying, we go to where's lighting, general, rendering lighting. Okay, I just drag. I usually leave it up there. So lighting, environment, and turn the fog off there. Okay, so we've got a basic grass texture there. I'm going to put a I'm going to create a game object, 3D object, capsule. And I'll just rename that to player, just to give me a sense of scale as to how big a player is. Okay. And you can see if we're doing that player level, the tiling on the terrain texture is a bit noticeable. So let's just scroll down. Once we have to select one of our terrain layers. Once you've selected it by left clicking here, scroll down to the section where it says tiling settings, and if you increase the value there, you're going to increase the size of the terrain, the size of the texture, sorry. So if we go up to 8, that looks maybe kind of reasonable, considering that's the height of a player there. There's a bit of tiling you can notice, but it's not too bad. Okay, now to create some mountains. If we go and take a look at some mountains, this is in Switzerland. You can see that the grassy bits are grassy colour, which is lower down in the valleys and the flatter parts. As you start to go up the mountain, at a certain point the grass stops because the water is running off the rock, and so the rock is exposed. So you've got this kind of a line where you have a bit of either a sudden change in colour or a bit of a blend from a grassy colour to a rocky colour. So we can do something similar here. We'll do that in a minute. First I just want to create some rough mountain shapes. So to do that we will scroll up, click this drop down and go to raise or lower terrain. I'm going to select this brush here. It says built-in brush 6. I find that's the best one to give the kind of effect that I like. Okay, I'm going to zoom up so we can see all around our terrain fairly well, and it just gives you a better angle to work from. Brush size, don't want it to be crazy big, but something around maybe that kind of size. Let's see how that is. Yeah, I can paint. If I just left click, I can paint fairly easily. I might turn the opacity up a bit more. That's going to raise or lower the ground more quickly. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just undo those bits I've painted already, and I'll just fly over a little bit closer. Okay, just turn that down a tad, and I'll just start painting some rough bits around the edges, because I'm going to make kind of a ring of mountains all around our scene. The player wouldn't be able to get out, but sometimes you don't want them to get out. Is that actually the brush that? No, I think this one. Yeah, this is the one that is a bit more realistic. Pretty quick to get rid of it all and do it again. Okay, yeah, this one gives a little bit more realistic shapes, I think. Okay, I'm just flying in and out. Just left clicking to paint. So if you zoom up and have a look at the detail, see this brush gives some nice, somewhat realistic detail, as well as bigger shapes. If you use one of these other ones, like say this, you're just going to get rounded hilly shapes. This one, similar kind of thing. That one's not too bad. Actually, is that 5? Yeah, that is the one that I do prefer for this kind of work. Okay, so I'm going to get back to left clicking and raising up the first pass of some mountains. make sure there's a little bit of variation, some higher bits, some lower bits. You don't want, in this kind of situation where we don't really want the player to be able to get out, we could do that a number of ways with clipping brushes, or we could just do it by mostly raising up the terrain so that they can't get out. Okay. Okay, so that'll do for now for some rough mountains. I might create some hills a little bit lower in front of the mountains. So to do that, I'll just select the terrain, left click on the terrain again, go once again into paint terrain, selecting that button there, raise or lower, and I'm going to go into a system is locking up, not ideal. Okay, I'm going to select this brush, built-in brush number 2, which is a soft round brush. Zoom out a bit, make the brush size a bit bigger. Okay, and I can just do some gentle clicks in front of the mountains. If you go down to ground level, you see what that looks like. You can't really create them at ground level. It's better to do them from up high. Okay, just creating a few hills. Doesn't have to be everywhere around the perimeter. Okay, let's go and take a look. Where's the player? We will focus on the player, Shift F to focus. Okay, how's that looking? Yeah, not too bad. Okay, let's leave it at that for now. And let's recall our mountains over here where the lower areas are green because there's grass, and when there's a transition, it goes up to a rockier color. Okay, so I'm going to add, I'll click on my, left click on my terrain again to select it. And we're still on the paint texture tab. I'm going to add, need to change from raise or lower terrain. We'll change to paint texture. Create a layer. Now that's going to let me select a texture. Okay, searching for ground. Ground albedo. Let's see if we've got a rock. I think we do. Dirt desaturated rocks. See what that looks like. Double click on that. Okay, we've got our new layer. Nah, that's not really what I was after. Dirt corrupted. It's a little bit more desaturated. Okay, it's sort of more of what I was after. And change to a bit of a rougher brush. Something like this. Just left click. Okay. Just left click and drag, and you can paint with this new texture. So I might turn brush size down a little bit. Okay, you can put multiple rock textures if that's what you want. But what I'm going to try and do is I'll just change back to the other one. So at a certain height, around about there, I'm going to change most of this to the rocky texture. Most, but not all of it, because nature is not uniform. If you make everything exactly a straight line around the edge, it's not going to look too natural. Okay, just paint. Oops, sometimes if you right click at the wrong place, you'll let go of your texture. Okay, so just going around, I just did it again. I think I clicked on the background or something. Okay, left click on the texture, go back to paint. Okay, alright, I'm just gonna speed up the video and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so that's done now, and yeah, so there's a pretty quick rocky background. I haven't taken any care with any details, but you can see that you can quickly add a lot of rocky terrain with some hills in front for any scene that you need something like that on. Okay, if you found that video useful, please give it a like, and if you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to my channel. Okay, thanks. See you next time. Bye.